What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Coffee and Questions podcast. I am Michelle Verma-Michael, your host. You guys know me, but who I really am excited to introduce to you guys today is a new friend of mine who I feel like we've gotten to know each other really, really well in a very short amount of time, but none other than Scott, who runs Shape. So if you guys are not familiar with Shape CRM, you need to know, but Scott is the Chief Product Officer at Shape Software. He is also the President of Shape Professional Services. And Scott is really, really killing it on Instagram. And he is also hilarious in the process. So, Scott, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me. So excited to be with you, Michelle. This is so cool.
Yeah, I'm really excited. I feel like you're doing things really just not only uniquely, but very authentically. And there's so much value in that, especially right now, right? I think the marketplace with Instagram as a whole is a little bit oversaturated. It's a lot of being too worried about things that don't really matter. And I think offline, you and I had a really good conversation about the really true meaning of why Instagram is such a powerful platform. So what I want you to do, if you're willing, because I don't think my audience knows you very well yet, but tell me a little bit about how you got into the CRM world. Where did you come from? And then why Instagram?
Yeah. Well, let me just start out by saying that, I started my career as a loan officer. Like I was a college graduate who at the time had many friends who were going off to be a loan officer. And I thought, that sounds fancy. I want to be a loan officer. And so I went off and interviewed with a company at the time was called Syntex Home Equity. That company later became Nation Star Mortgage, and that company is now called Mr. Cooper. When a lot of people know the name Mr. Cooper. And so I interviewed there. I had a very difficult time getting a job because I'd never had a sales position before. But what I had was leadership. I was very involved in a fraternity in college with different on-campus leadership positions with our duck camp at Tarleton State University and orientation. And just I immersed myself in leadership positions at school. And what I sold myself on was that, hey, to be a leader on campus, you have to sell people to kind of get behind you and all of that. So I was able to get a job as a loan officer and worked my way up. One of the things I was very successful on early on was finding my way to manage my leads. I had to, at the time, the software we used was homegrown built. It worked, but it didn't work very well to be successful. To be successful, you had to kind of come up with your own strategies to do things. And I came up with a way using a spreadsheet to manage my leads and to follow up. And I had a system that worked really well. And I was able to kind of progress pretty quickly. I got into a management training program. And luck would have it, through the management and training program, I get to spend some time with the marketing department. And when I was in the marketing department, I got to have the keys to that marketing lead system where I was in charge of lead management and lead distribution and got experience with that. And fast forward a couple of years after I went and ran a branch, a sales manager branch, I was running a branch in a consumer direct branch here in Dallas. I was asked to go run essentially a sales marketing position where they wanted someone to sit in between sales and marketing. They said, hey, sales is fighting with marketing too much. We'd go to these meetings and it was like a knockout, drag out fight between like, hey, the leads are terrible. And hey, well, you're terrible at sales. And it's like, we need someone to sit in the middle. And they asked me, having that marketing experience and also the sales experience, to be someone to sit in between the two. And ultimately, I joke around now that I was like a marriage counselor every day. I would come in and sales would complain about the leads. And I'd say, well, you have some issues too. I listened to a call yesterday. It wasn't all that great. You need to improve that. And marketing would say, hey, sales isn't doing this. I'm like, well, this lead, they have like a 480 FICO, right? You realize that, well, okay, go work on that. And I was always like counseling them between the two, right? And holding them accountable. And ultimately it became where I needed to have a good system that allowed me to counsel them very easily. I needed a lead management system. And at the time, I went out and found a system that would allow me to do it, implemented that system with the company, and the rest is kind of history. I got into that space. I learned that system really. A lot of people, they may have know the term Velocify. It was a lead management system. Started working with that system very closely. Fast forward, I ended up going to work for that company for 4 years. Built my network as I traveled the country and helped companies implement that system. And fast forward all those years later, came across a company called Shape and fell in love with Shape, fell in love with the technology advancements they are. They work with multiple industries. So now I'm working with mortgage and insurance and solar and debt. And cremation companies, and you name it, all kinds of different companies now. And so long story short, that's kind of my history of how I got into CRM. And now as a chief product officer, I help kind of build the product and new ideas and taking and hearing feedback from our customers and going to build new things and innovate, but also from a professional services standpoint, helping our clients implement their process into the systems and a number of other fun things. I just love my job. It's so much fun. And I get to do social media on top of it. It's so fun.
Well, first of all, holy moly, right? Like what a
Yes.
journey to get to where you are.
Yeah.
But more importantly, I think this is such a timely conversation because lead management is such a struggle for everybody listening to this. Like, I mean, even me, right, running my organization, I feel like we kill it with staying in front of our clients, staying in front of our pipeline, doing a really good job at following up and all of that. But there's always stuff that falls through the cracks, like no matter
For
what,
sure.
right?
Yep.
And I think that this conversation with what's going on with the state of the mortgage industry last year, moving into this year, it's more important than ever to not just be talking about mortgages, right? And I think that that's what I want to talk about with you more specifically, because you have a very strong personal story that leads us to this. And
Mhm.
you have done obviously a very good job at coupling this with social media and how you portray that story. And so let's talk about that just a little bit, right? Because
Sure.
if I consume you on Instagram, I really get to know Scott, and I want to
Yeah.
know why you're so confident in that story and why you're also confident in sharing it, if you don't mind.
Yeah, for sure. And so maybe I'll just start off to tell the story. So, um, what you'll see on Instagram, what you'll see on LinkedIn, the other platforms, is you're going to see me wearing a wig, and you're going to say, "Well, why is this guy wearing a wig?" And in fact, maybe now I'll just put it on. I was trying to be cool and have my nice hairdo. I got my haircut last week, but let's just go ahead and put on what you'll see on social media. And it's this mullet wig that I got on Amazon. And I actually have a whole like wardrobe of them now. And I have this shape headband now because
So funny.
there's a whole tie-in with that now as well. But this mullet, for those that are watching the video part of it, this mullet was something that I started to wear because I'm the president of, which sounds so official, I'm the president of the Dad's Club at my kid's school. And I've been president of the Dad's Club at my kids' school since my kids were like in first grade. This is at elementary schools. And here in the Dallas area, this happens at elementary schools a lot. They'll have a Dad's Club, and the dads will, cook lunches sometimes, or, will help out teachers and stuff like that. At our Dad's Club, here in Texas, in Dallas area, we would actually every morning we'd have like 15 dads show up, and we would open the car doors for kids. In elementary school, you have kindergartners, first graders, they need help getting out of the car. And that's the main reason we had to be there to open the doors. So we did that for 4 or 5 years. And I started to do it. And, it was fun. We had fun with it. We played music and that kind of stuff. And when my son was in second grade, they had pictures hanging on the wall, right, outside his classroom. And the pictures they had hanging on the wall was that like, what are you going to do when you grow up? And it was like the big things, right? And so like some kids had like be an astronaut. It was like, oh, I'm going to be an astronaut and a major league baseball player and a doctor. And my son's was major league baseball player and astronaut, and then president of Dad's Club. And it was like those are like the three big things. And it hit me then like, wow, like this is having a big impact in his life at a very early age. Fast forward a couple of years, we get to fifth grade. Fifth grade, now we're going to middle school. And normally we're opening doors because kids need, help in elementary school. Sixth grade, middle school, they don't need help opening doors anymore. But I went to the sixth grade meeting, met the principal, and said, "Hey, what would you think if we brought the Dad's Club to middle school?" And he was like, "Absolutely, let's do it." I'm like, let's open doors for kids. Let's do it. He's absolutely, we'd love it. He's like, does anybody else do that? No, but let's do it. Okay, cool. Let's do it. And so I got some dads together. We came back and did it again. Okay. So now for middle school, sixth, seventh, eighth grade, they don't need help. And in fact, they probably don't like us around, you would think, but now they love us around. They really do. I really can tell. And the whole story is this. When I was in third grade, my dad made the very, very unfortunate decision to commit suicide. And the very last place I saw him, I don't know how I remember this. I've been reflecting on this a lot. I don't know how I remember very key moments of like 9 years old, but I very distinctly remember driving up to school when I was 9 years old, and my dad was crying hysterically, dropping us off from school. But drop off at school that day, he was crying. I have no idea why. And we get out and hug him and whatever, he's crying, and we get out of the car, and it's the last time I saw him at drop off. And so for me, that drop off moment is just a very key moment in my life. And so I'm trying to make it a big deal for every kid who gets out of their car every day to make them smile. Cause I don't know, like, I don't know the situation every day. You never know. So we make them smile when they get out, open the door, we're playing music. You should see some of the dances I do. Today was Cotton Eye Joe Day, by the way.
Gosh.
And there was another dance where I'm dancing around with like I had a glow stick in my hand. That was when my son walked by because so I usually go, by the way, when my kids aren't even there yet. I go before they even get there, just to get up there and help out and stuff. And so the glow stick was my son he was walking by, and he loved that one. Let me just tell you. So what's fast forward where this is all gone is that as I'm wearing the wigs, which started really on Fridays only, now it's kind of almost every day now, something funny. I started to, hey, I'm gonna turn the camera on and I'm gonna use this as a Fun Hair Friday. And I've used that now for my Instagram videos to do like a Fun Hair Fridays series where I'll go park where I have to like move some signs, and I'll have that 60-second walk, and I'll just do a quick little talk. Sometimes it's a little motivational things. Sometimes it's just, hey, checking in. Hey, what do you guys think about my new wig? Or, hey, keep your head up. Hey, this time of year sucks. Keep your head up. Or whatever it is, just a quick video, and it's in this wig or a different wig or whatever it might be. And so what's happened now is now people ask about it. Like my mom's like, hey, it's Friday. Where's the video? It's noon. I haven't seen the video yet. Or I go to conferences and they're like, where's the wig? I left it at home. Why are you not wearing it? And so it's just become one of those things that people have now seen. It's caught on. It's memorable. People remember it. And that's kind of the goal, I think, of social media is to be memorable. And I think that it's not just that, like people remember it, but they actually kind of remember some of the messages and things that I'm talking about. Some of the motivational stuff that I'm talking about. It's the Dad's Club part. It's the motivational messaging. It's now tying in the story about, hey, got through this emotional time, got through this. I can do it. You can do it. And I've even had a lot of dads who have reached out and said, hey, I want to start a dad's club. What do I do? And I think that's what I'm most excited about. And I think when I retire someday, that's what I'm going to do. I want to help at dad's club.
Group. I was going to say, just start a Facebook group for like how to create your own dad's club at school.
Yeah. And by the way, guess what I do? I use Shape for my dad's club, like CRM, tracking like who shows up to what events, sending my communications out. I use Shape for all of that, by the way.
That's
cool.
So cool. And it's such an amazing story to be able to show the power of brand, right? And the power of awareness. And I think that Shape, especially being, I don't want to say newer, but definitely newer on the CRM overall game, right? Especially for people who have been in the industries that you're describing, Shape can support for years and years and years and years, right? So when it comes to adopting a new technology of any kind, right? It's hard. There's a lot that goes into that. Instagram is no different when it comes to adopting the platform. People are like, oh, there's just one more thing to learn. Or I had a call earlier today. Someone was like, Michelle, I'm 48. This whole Instagram thing, like, I'm too old for this. And I'm like, I'm 33. You're not that old, right? Like, it's you got this.
Right.
But adopting a new platform is already stressful. And so what I think you've done such a good job of, and we talked about this offline, but in general, what I feel like you've done such a good job of is creating this brand identity that's very approachable, right? Because I'm more likely to want to have a conversation with you about Shape, even though I know nothing about it, solely because I'm like, dude, you're kind of cool. Like, this is just, you're fun. Which isn't that the point of Instagram in the first place, right?
Yep. Yeah. And a lot of people said too, they're like, I just feel like I already know you, right? Because I've heard your stories now, and I've heard you, mention this, or, I'm a dad too, and I can relate to having a middle school kid who looks, because I'll walk around I've done this with like walking back from pickleball, my daughter, and you can just sometimes she'll look the way she looks at me, right? She's like, oh my God, you're so annoying right now. And I've even called it out some of my videos too, where I'm like, how to annoy your eighth grader, eighth grade daughter, right? And so people can relate to that, right? But at the end of the day, and people have called this out too, like in that video of annoying your eighth grade daughter, there's a couple of times when I'm kind of in front and she's behind, where you can see her look up at me and smile, right? And people have called that out and said, you can tell she actually kind of likes it. You can tell she's back there like this is kind of cool, but she doesn't want to admit it,
Mhm.
right? And so people can relate to those things that are happening in those interactions with the annoying dad that maybe isn't as annoying as she's making it out to be or what have you. So
You just got to put
yeah,
the face on, Dad. Come on. We
yeah.
were all in eighth grade once. Uh,
Yes, that's right. The
but
other
the
thing I'd add too, and I told my kids this yesterday for the first time, is that because I pay their rent and because I pay for their clothes and I pay for all their sports, is that I have fair game to use them for all of my social media.
and I mean,
I said half
hello,
jokingly, but
hello
true.
taxes. You can actually technically write off paying
Yeah,
them and using
that's
them for
right.
social media. So,
Yeah. So I'm
um,
like, hey, I need you on video today.
mhm.
Which is a whole nother story. I want to tell this story at some point about a video that I recorded like 4 years ago with my daughter who was in fifth grade at the time. And I'm trying to get her to come back on video to do an intro of that video. We never posted it because back in the day I was scared to post it. So I
Mm.
didn't post stuff that I was scared to post back then. Now I post it in a heartbeat, but I didn't post it back then. And I've now edited it back up, ready to post it. And I'm trying to get her to come back and intro it again with me. But she's like, my makeup doesn't look good. I'm like, I don't care. Put a wig on, do something funny,
Yeah.
something like that. So
Isn't it? It's
that's coming too.
funny, but also sad in the one sense, right? That somebody that's in eighth grade is
Yes,
worried about my
I
makeup
know.
has been
I
done.
know.
What has happened in our world?
I know. Right.
Where that's a thing.
Right.
But I want to tie so really fast. I have a thought here, and I want to see where we can go with this because
Sure.
cold calling is a very abrasive experience, right? And I think that what we're talking about right now, and the reason I bring that up is when we are cold calling people, whether that's you trying to get someone to want to use the Shape software, or whether that's me, right, trying to get or get a realtor or a loan officer to talk to me about helping them with their social presence, cold calling sucks. Like you call them at a weird time. They're like, I'm in the middle of drop off, or I'm walking into a dentist appointment, or whatever the million reasons as to why that is not a good time for them. So we, as the person doing it, get hung up on, right? We get yelled at, we get cursed at, all the things, right? So what I have developed is a strategy to get us away from that, right? To get away from having to cold call and sort of avoid that abrasive interaction.
Sure.
And when you and I first met, we talked about this. We talked about how I do it and my entire platform and the way that I coach and teach this. And you brought up a really unique strategy that you have used, which honestly, just quite frankly, perfectly ties into mine. But I want you to talk about that because when you're using Instagram, you're obviously doing a very good job of being personal. But at the end of the day, you have a goal, right? By using the Shape platform as part of your marketing, your job is to get people to want to use Shape. In doing so, you're being a person first, right? And allowing the connection to happen. Then the conversation about Shape can happen after that. But with that, you have a very unique way of going about building these relationships. And I would love for you to tell the audience what that is and how you normally go about that.
I would say two big things. One is that we've developed a process over time that we can essentially secret shop people. So I don't know if that's exactly where you're going with this or not, but where like, hey, we know that people who are using a software like ours to be able to secret shop them or be able to put a lead on their website and be able to track, like, are they actually calling them or are they interacting with people in a timely manner or not? Because if they're not, that's where like Shape can really come in and help them, right?
Mm.
So putting a lead in and saying, and then recording a video that, to them versus calling them and saying, hey, by the way, hey, I just went to your website and we put this lead in. It's been like 3 hours. We had a call. I just want to make sure you knew something might be broken. So if you didn't know that, I want to make sure you know. Just want to give you a heads up that if something's not broken, maybe you should look at Shape because we have this way that if the lead comes in, we can automate it. It can go out, get a call, blah blah blah, and we can automate it. But we do that with video, and I like platforms like Instagram because then we can track like was it viewed or seen or tell if it's viewed or whatever. There's that component of it as well. Um, Now, the other part of it, when it relates to like, were you referencing more like the follow strategy, stuff like that as well? Yeah.
Yeah,
So
the way you are prospecting and building new connections on Instagram is really
yeah,
interesting.
yeah. So the other part was that like I have people like Kyle Draper and others, people who are, in my mind, people that I've associated with a lot in the past, influencers or whatever, I've had on my podcast or whatever, or I've been on their podcast or whoever, and create a lot of content with on LinkedIn. And so what I've done is put or pinned their content to the top of my profile. And then what I've done is gone into their followers and looked for like-minded people, whether it be people in the Dallas area, people who I think would be good fits for our services. Could be loan officers or real estate agents or whatever. And I start looking through the people who follow Kyle, in this example, Kyle. And I'll look for those people, and then I'll go on their profile. Are they active? Do they look like someone who fits our kind of ICP? And then I'll look at their content. Is it active? And then I'll drop a comment or engage with their material in some way, or look at their story or whatever and drop a comment. And my hope is that they're going to come back to my profile and they're going to look and they're going to see a picture of Kyle right there at the top. And the hope is then they're going to see, oh, well, this guy knows Kyle and there's a picture of Kyle on his profile. My hope is that they then follow me, and then they're going to see, oh, this guy talks about lead management. Oh, guess what? I'm not very good at lead management because I'm a loan officer. Most loan officers struggle with lead management. I wonder how this guy can help with lead management. And then go to the next video down. And the next video, which I have, the second one, is what's the difference between CRM and lead management? And they watch that. Like, oh, wow, I never thought about CRM and lead management that way. And then they go to the third video down. Oh, wow, what is this? And the idea is to then get them into that funnel of, okay, well, yes, I need help with lead management. And then from this, maybe they then give me a follow back. They start to see my content more and more. And at that point, when they follow, then I try to send them a video. And the idea with the video is that they'll watch it, engage with it, and then I'm going to show up my stories as I'm doing more and more videos over time. They get to know me, and then who knows where it leads from there. That's kind of my strategy over time.
No, but it's honestly brilliant. And I think I'm just going to use myself as an example because it feels the most natural for me in this moment, which is when I'm trying to earn the opportunity of someone's attention, right? In this case, what's the easiest and best way to do that? Leverage an existing relationship that I have with someone that also has a relationship with the person that I'm trying to get to. So in the strategy that you're describing, which for everybody listening, I'm going to reiterate this because this is not to be missed, right? But what Scott did was he interviewed Kyle Draper, who, if you guys have followed me long enough, you know that Kyle and I are very good friends. And I have personally interviewed Kyle, I don't even know how many times, and vice versa. But
we were introduced by Kyle via video, by the way, on Instagram.
Exactly.
Yes.
And I literally just yesterday, Kyle introduced me to somebody that I actually already knew, but her and I had never taken it offline. And he introduced us via text, via video, right? And then of course I had to make sure that I sent a video back because Kyle sent a video. But the point that I'm trying to make, and to bring us back here, right, to what you did, Scott, is you leveraged a relationship with someone that has influence in our industry, right? So Kyle has a significant influence in the mortgage and the real estate space. And so what did you do? You interviewed him, right? You then put it at the top of your profile and left it there, right? On Instagram, the beautiful thing is we can pin the best content that we want people to see at the very top of our page. So you then go into Kyle's following, right? The people that are consuming Kyle's content, the people that are following Kyle, and you're creating a relationship with them directly, right? And the beautiful thing about that is when that person then comes to your profile, they already like, know, and love Kyle. And the fact that Kyle knows, and loves you, Scott, automatically makes that other person know, and love you, right? So then when they receive an engagement from you, they're like, oh, yeah, I can talk to this guy. And they're more likely to respond, right? So we have now broken the ice and alleviated that intrusive, weird, sales breathy conversation that can tend to happen via DM, right? So, I mean, it's so simple, and that's the beauty of it. And it's so done, in my opinion. And especially recently, I have been screaming this from the mountaintops, but you do not need more followers. You do not need fancy videos. You do not need a videographer following you around. You don't need any of that. You just need to talk to people, right? Instead of consuming, we need to talk to people. We need to build connections, right? Don't consume, connect. There's a huge difference. So will you talk to me, and let's go one step further, Scott, because what I want you to tell us about is when you initiate relationships on Instagram after executing this strategy, how do those conversations feel and how do they go?
So I'll record a video and I'll send it to him, and I'll start it off with this: say, hey, I'm sending you a video. I'm going to tell you right now, do not feel like you need to send a video back.
Mm.
You can text back, right? I always start with that because I found early on was that when I'd send a video, I always felt that they wouldn't respond because they felt like they had to send a video back. So I'd start out right away. Hey, you don't have to send a video back. I'm just sending this because I want you to feel that way. I found when I would say that, people actually would respond with more video back. Might be a little delayed, or people might just send a text back. So I always started that way. It's something I found over time. Um, but yeah, I mean, it was just like they felt like I think maybe because then they would start after I sent the video, maybe they went back to my profile and started to watch a couple more videos to get to know me even a little bit better. And then when they responded, I found that they would mention things that maybe they wouldn't have otherwise known had they not already watched some other videos. They mentioned like the Dad's Club, or they mentioned a video that was further down on my profile that maybe they had watched and mentioned it in the response back to me in some way. So I was getting some traffic back down on some of the videos that were lower down in the profile that I think they were kind of, okay, who is this guy? What does he do? How is he, and so they were getting further down and what have you. One thing I was going to add to, I'm doing this at the follower level. One thing I've also done and seen success with is going into the like Kyle's, like people who are liking Kyle's stuff or commenting on Kyle's stuff. Maybe start
We
on the
call
comment.
that the wormhole effect in my world, but yes.
Yeah. And starting there. So, I've done it for, Kyle and just other people I've done podcasts with. It doesn't have to be Kyle, but the nice thing about the pin is you can interchange that over time. So change Kyle to someone else, to whatever it might be, whoever is doing this. I'll give you an example too. Kyle yesterday did a post, Pastor Kyle did a post about Pastor Kyle. And
I
if you
love
saw
me
that
some
post,
Pastor Kyle. That's how Kyle and I became friends, was because I literally sent him a message on Instagram after hearing him on Clubhouse. That just tells you when Kyle and I met, right?
Oh,
During
yeah.
COVID.
Yeah.
But Kyle was on Clubhouse in some random group with Phil Treadwell, who's also a very good friend of ours mutually, right? And Phil had this guy, Kyle, come up on the quote stage in Clubhouse, and Kyle just got on there and straight pastored it out, man. It was amazing. And I went on Instagram to find him, sent him a message, and I was like, the passion you have for God is so tangible. And the fact that you're so good at what you do and you love God as much as you do, we need to be friends. That was literally the message I sent to him.
Yeah.
And I was on an airplane to Dallas to meet him in real life 2 months later.
That's awesome. So he did that video yesterday and he said, I've been hearing from people that I need to do this. I recorded a video for him on the treadmill yesterday morning. And I said, hey, I just want to send a video to you. I got two things of advice for you. One, I miss your videos and I'm hearing people talk about how good videos you do when you're walking. You need to do another video of you walking soon. Number two, I miss Pastor Kyle. I only heard you do it during the 30-day thing, 30-day boot camp on Sunday mornings. You need to incorporate that more in your stuff. And then later that afternoon, he did it. And guess what? He tagged me in the video, in the post on LinkedIn. Okay. And the reason I say that is that, not that everyone's going to tag you when you do that. It's not always going to happen. They might mention you, not always going to happen. But when they do, there's some type of influence that happens because of that. And that's not why I did it. I really wanted to hear those two things. I love those two types of videos from Kyle, but there is a benefit of that happening because now my profiles visits went up, followers went up. I was now associated with that video because Kyle said, hey, thanks for pushing me along, Scott Payne, right? And those types of things matter, right? And now they're like, associate this with Kyle. And, that's all about connecting people. It's in Kyle's book, connecting people, all of that. You're just following the steps of that. That's what this community does together, which by the way, we just released today. Shape did a podcast, Get in Shape podcast. We released an episode with Phil Treadwell as well. So
amazing. I have a meeting with him this morning. Love me some Phil Treadwell, but
oh yeah.
The thing I want to talk about very briefly, if we can, maybe not very briefly, but just in general, quickly, what you're talking about is leveraging genuine connection, right? And that is what Instagram is really about. And I feel like, if I can be honest, you and I have talked about this offline, and I'm going on a tangent here, so hopefully everybody listening can stay with me. But what you and I have talked about offline is that mortgage, especially, we're going to talk about the mortgage industry for a second, which is most of my audience aside from the real estate world anyway. Mortgage professionals have a problem with how they produce content on social, right? And what I mean by that is they are talking about mortgages way too much, right? because I don't really care about the escrow process. Sorry, right? I don't really care about the quote, like, what is the difference between this vocabulary word and this vocabulary word that as it relates to the mortgage industry, right? Or as it relates
Yep.
to the title process.
Yep.
And I literally had a loan officer who's like, oh, I recorded an entire series with my title rep about what a CMA is. And I'm like, why? Right? Because how is that for me as the consumer, right? Who's actually buying the house, right? Because if I have a question, I'm not calling the title rep. I'm calling you as either my loan officer or as my agent that I'm putting my faith and my trust into
Yep.
to teach me what to do, right? Or to tell me what to do. So you and I had a really candid conversation. I don't know if you recall it, that we had prior to this, specifically around the type of content that mortgage professionals should be producing, and that it's about so much more than the actual act of helping someone get a mortgage. Do you want to elaborate?
I mean, I would say that, yeah, it's selling the, like, the dream of what they can have by having a peace of mind of what the mortgage provides, right? Like, for example, like, I've done a lot of content around my kids. Of course, I mentioned that earlier, but like, hey, having a mortgage, let's say, or a place to call home, or having a good job that allows me to have good hours, allows me to go to the state fair and take my kid out of school for the state fair, to go to the go with my daughter, take her out of school and go to the state fair and record a video of us eating this crazy fruity pebble pickle or whatever it was, or a video like, or volunteering every morning at dad's club. Like, I'm not in a job or a stressful situation about having this crazy mortgage payment and stress and all this stuff. I'm in this situation of being able to put my family first, and be able to put my kids first, be able to put my wife first, and all of the things come first. And
Mhm.
then so I'm selling the dream of what can happen when I'm a homeowner first, and then everything else ties in next. You tie some of those things, like, I walk into my house, right? Or I walk into, or I'm from my car, then getting out, walking into my house, and the kind of the dream of that home ownership. I talk about that a little bit too with kind of the story with my dad was that, um, uh, and part of this goes back to, I'm an author in this book, Rethink Everything You Know, about being a next gen loan officer. And part of the story in the book is that um, part of the reason I believe that my father made the unfortunate choice about suicide was that he was trying to qualify to become a homeowner again. We bought a house in Indiana, moved to Texas in an apartment, and he wanted to buy a house again, but he was being denied to buy a house. He had just gone through a messy divorce, credit was shot, and he had this dream of home ownership again. And he was getting these letters of denial from the banks. And I know all of this because a couple of years ago, I went up to a storage unit where all of the stuff was placed after he'd passed away 30 years prior. And I went through his storage unit, and in this folder, or it was in this box, I went through the box, and the folder was these letters that he had written, and detailed letters to underwriters, to loan officers, letters of explanation about his situation. And you could tell very clearly that it was so painful to him that he couldn't provide to us kids the ability to purchase a home, to give us a backyard, to give us a sandbox, to give us a basketball goal. Like, those are the things very descriptively in the letters. He wanted that so badly for us. And behind it was, sorry, you're denied. Sorry, you're denied. No, like, sorry, you're denied, but here's a plan for you. Here's a way to improve. Here's your nurture strategy. Here's ways to improve. Here's a video, obviously 1990, no videos, but today, hey, here's a video that if you have credit problems, here are the 5 steps you can take today to improve your credit situation, right? Not a video of amortization, blah, blah, blah. Like, no one cares. Like, people are struggling today and they need hope. And so people need to be doing videos about hope, or how to get into a better situation, a bigger house, how to get into to give their kids and their family a better situation, providing that hope. That's what the videos need to be about, not interest rates going down next year or whatever, right? And so that's how I tie it all together on what the video should be about, to help those that are in need, because everybody has a situation, everybody needs that hope. Everyone needs to have, I mean, every customer. And so that's what I tell about in the story is like, I want to help as many people as possible, as many loan officers as possible, to work with as many as people as possible. And lead management and CRM does that.
Mhm.
If I can work with one loan officer and help them call 20 more people today, that's 20 more customers that could potentially help. And there might be 2 people out of the 20 who are desperately needing help that might be in a situation like my dad, right? And they might be able to help 2 of those people, right? Using a CRM that's automation, it's workflow, we have all of the stuff built in, it can help them out. Who knows, right? And so that's what videos need to be about, not the
This
other
is
stuff. That
so,
dream.
but seriously, this is so much bigger than even like what I am capable of putting into words. And I'm really good with words. I've always been really capable of telling a story and writing it down. But what you just said, like I feel like people need to truly understand this because we are quite literally, not to be dramatic, not to exaggerate in any case. Like this is real life. We are literally in a position, like you guys listening to this as loan officers, to literally save someone's life, right? And that sounds so like, whoa, that's a big statement, but that is what we are talking about. This is a very real, excuse me, scenario where someone took their own life solely because they could not provide something to their family, right? And your dad obviously loved you guys and loved your family. And the fact that he wasn't able to provide, he felt like you guys were better off without him. That is so impactful when you really undo all of that and realize how important the role of a loan officer is in our life as human beings, right? And so I think we have to take this and we have to really slow down for a minute and say, the content that I'm producing on Instagram, this is a matter of life or death for someone that's consuming it, right? And the act of buying a home, right? And I'm going to use myself as an example because many people know this story for me, right? But when I moved to Louisiana with my husband, I had just had Knox. We found out that we were moving when I was 37 weeks pregnant. So we could not go to Louisiana to find a house. We could not go see them in real life, right? We had to trust the person that we were hiring to help us. It was an awful situation to say it lightly, right? In the sense of we ended up getting into a home that was not good for us whatsoever. And the realtor completely wildly screwed us, in the sense of we were 30 minutes from base. The house was falling apart and the inspection was so bad. We ended up getting our money back and getting an extra credit from the realtor because of how bad the inspection, basically the inspector didn't inspect the house. He was just like, sign, sign. So he was paid off to just ignore the inspection. And what that person didn't realize that they were doing wrong in the process was I moved to a place with no friends, no family, and a 2-week-old, right? With my husband, who was home full time with me up until that point because he was finishing his master's degree, to now being away and at work 12 hours a day, on top of the fact that I had just become a new mom, right? With no friends or family nearby. So we're talking about a scenario where I ended up in a home that caused me severe postpartum depression, an ungodly amount of bills as it relates to therapists and other things, right? And what you don't realize is that the realtor was trying to get a commission, right? The loan officer was trying to close a loan, but what they didn't realize was that they caused me way more anguish than they should have had they done their job, right? And so when you think, oh, I'm just sending a denial letter to someone, or, oh, I'm just helping them with getting further in the process of getting closer to the loan closing, how much power you have to truly make a difference in someone's life. And if we slow down for a second and we stop worrying about transactions, right? How many loans am I doing this year? How many real estate transactions am I doing this year? And we think about how many relationships am I building this year? You will totally change the trajectory of your business, right? You're not worried about where your next paycheck is coming from, because if you are good at relationships, it will always come, right? And
Totally. Yeah.
gosh, you're like even like the reason you're in CRM management or lead management, right? I shouldn't say CRM management because I know you guys are lead management, but
It's CRM as well. Yeah. Yeah.
the reason you are in lead management, like if you think about that, you're like, oh, that's like a tech job. He's probably got a tech degree. No, the reason you are in lead management is because it has literally impacted your life directly.
Absolutely. Yep. I
So,
figured it out that day. Absolutely. Yeah.
so powerful, right?
Right.
Like And it ties into why you're doing the dad's club and why it's so important to open
Right.
doors. And it's
Right.
subliminally, obviously, opening doors ties into all kinds of things related to real estate and mortgage and all the things,
100%.
right?
Yep.
But first of all, I'm just so grateful for you bringing this up because
Yeah.
mortgage professionals, real estate professionals listening to this, your content is so much bigger than a vocabulary word, right? And it's so much bigger than the Fed says the interest rates are going to go down 4 times in 2024, which is already
Right.
not true, right?
Right.
Your content has to have a passion behind it. It has to matter. And I
Exactly
think
right.
that we need to slow the hell down and stop worrying about posting so much or getting more followers and instead connecting, right? So stop consuming, start connecting, and you will never be worried about doing another transaction again, ever.
Totally. I'm a big supporter, by the way, of a charity called Mortgage Professionals Providing Hope. And I did that, by the way. It's a Dale Vermillion charity. I've done it for years.
Mm.
And again, this was before I opened this box and got these letters out. And it wasn't before, it was before this. But then everything clicked when I read those letters. It was like hope. Everyone just needs hope.
Mm.
My dad needed hope. He just needed to know that, hey, you don't qualify now. He just needed to know that, like, hey, in 6 months it could happen. You need some help. He was just being denied. He didn't have a plan, didn't know there was hope at the end of the corner, whatever. And so
And
that's
nobody made an effort to make him feel that way. And that's the problem, I think, with, quite frankly, and I've served the mortgage industry for a living, but
yeah,
quite literally, I believe that that's the problem with the industry. Even as a consumer myself, right? Someone who's bought and sold 4 homes now, the
yeah,
mortgage industry is so focused on, let me get the lead, let me hand off the lead, and let me scale my business,
yeah,
when that is not the goal, right? It shouldn't be the goal, right?
right,
Because if you do it with the relationship at the core, like, for example, in your situation, a bank that denies your dad, right? What should that bank have done? That bank should have assigned somebody to him, had
hmm
them call your dad and say, hey, I'm so sorry that we had to deny you, but I am personally going to work alongside you. I'm going to call you every 2 weeks and we are going to talk about these 3 things. And we're
yep,
going to just get you on the trajectory. It may not be right now, but I'm not telling you no, I'm just telling you not right now. Right.
yep,
And that takes time, right? And so many people right now who are so focused on scaling their companies are
yep.
not willing to take the time that it requires to do something like that. And that is the difference between someone that will be in this industry forever and someone that will scale themselves or automate themselves right out of it.
I would tell you too that there'd be a lot of loan officers that would hear that and say, I don't have time to call that person every 2 weeks. That's fine. With CRM lead management with Shape,
Mm-hmm.
we could set it up where you could call them every 6 weeks, every 9 weeks, whatever it is, and let the automation work where we send an email, we send a text over time. But the best part is we can track whether that person is engaged with the content so
Mm-hmm.
that when you call them in 6 weeks, you can know, are they reading the emails? Are they opening the emails? Are they clicking on the links? So that you can have the trust to know that this person is actually reading the content and they're bought in. Are they buying in? Are they on the same page? Are they going to try? Are they like the hope that you're giving them? Are they bought into it? Cool. If they are, cool. Then you better call them in 6 weeks because they're trusting you, right? But if they're not, okay, cool. Call them in 9 weeks. Don't call them in 6 weeks. We
Mm-hmm.
set up all of this for the loan officers to make their lives super easy, super simple, giving the effort to the people who are asking for it, and then still touching the ones they need to touch over time, but giving the ones who are raising their hand to say, I need the help. We can help those people, help those loan officers make their lives easy and not overwhelm them with all of that effort that is needed, from a phone call perspective.
Well, and take it one step further, you can customize all those emails, right?
Absolutely.
Because
Absolutely.
and this is
Specific to
honestly one
whatever.
of the beautiful things about the relationship that Shape and my company have and that
Yep.
is growing, right? Which is, hey, I want to get in there and I want to teach your loan officers how to customize those emails so that the message is better received,
Right.
right? And so that the message comes across as genuine and isn't a stock photo or isn't a boilerplate animated GIF with this like stupid little thing rolling around on my screen, right?
Right.
Because that doesn't make me feel connected to it, right?
Exactly.
So, but if we're talking about video like Kyle Draper wants us to do, how easy is it for you to record a video that has your passion and your tone and your hope in your voice in an
Yep.
automated email, right? So again, my point being, you can very easily over automate yourself out, but you can also very consistently focus on being automated and being genuine at the same time. And so I think that that's what Shape, obviously for a multitude of reasons, does so well, is that again, it makes our life easier, or the loan officer's life easier, real estate agents too. And frankly, if you're listening to this and you're neither, you can still use Shape, obviously, as Scott has said. But
Use it for dad's club. Yeah.
it makes our life easier, but more importantly, it makes us still super relatable and very authentic. And none of that goes by the wayside, but it takes effort, right? So if you don't make the custom videos, or if you don't make the customized emails, then yeah, you're going to have the standardized emails, and those are still great. They're still going to be effective, but they're not going to be as effective as they should be. So making yourself scalable also requires taking the time to build the systems once, right?
We also have the ability in Shape where you can record a video in Shape and send it to the customer. So in our prioritized view, I need to follow up with these people. Let me record a quick 30-second video, send it from within Shape, send it out to the customer, and then track if they watch it, open it, whatever, use that for further communication down the road. So still using that, hey, I'm just checking in. How are things going? Hope everything's well. Hope the situation's getting improved, or whatever it might be. And still that face-to-face connection, not just an email, for example. So anyways, would love to show anybody kind of what the power of it. They can schedule a demo. We'll include a link, of course, and all of that. So
that's what I was going to say is, ironically, this is not sponsored, guys. Shape
no,
is
it's not. Yeah.
paying me to be on this podcast, but the beauty of it is that I really believe in Scott, and I really believe in Shape, and Jimmy, who's alongside Scott at Shape, two incredible humans who are doing this for the right reasons. And that's something that, if you're listening to this and you're like, man, my lead management sucks, and I know it sucks. I really want you to reach out to Scott. I want you to reach out to me and say, hey, Michelle, I want to use Shape, but I need help with the customized these things, right? And that's where the relationship came from in the first place. And Scott's doing something that people are not doing, right? Like, just quite literally, Scott, you care on a level that I don't know of many people that do. And I actually believe that that's why the mortgage and real estate industry tends to get a bad rap. Is you have these people who are so transactional based that they forget what we've been talking about. So,
Sure.
Scott, I want to be a good steward of your time. We've been
Sure.
recording for close to an hour, which I love. Like, I love these long episodes because I get so many messages from people who are like, dude, that was so good. And that's what I want. And I feel that from this episode, my heart, it feels so grateful for your time. And my audience, I'm hoping, we're going to use that word. I'm hoping feels the same way that I do about this conversation. So in order to be a good steward of your time, would you please tell us what is coming up next? Where is Shape going to be next? And how can we get dialed into either talking to you or Shape as a whole?
Yeah. So I would say, we're going to be doing some webinars here, shortly. We do lots of stuff on LinkedIn, Instagram, of course, Facebook as well. We're going to be at LeadsCon. This will be probably our next big event for those that go to LeadsCon. And yeah, we're just doing lots of interviews and podcasts. We're doing the Get in Shape podcast, the play on getting in shape. Obviously, it's the new year and everyone's getting back in shape, of course. Now, I guess February, we'll see who's still doing that. But we have our headbands and I have a muscle shirt, and we're doing but anyways, the Get in Shape podcast, Phil Treadwell, is just released today. Michelle, you're coming on that soon as well. And so, yeah, be on the lookout for that. Me and Jimmy Ryan co-host that podcast. So lots of content coming.
Can you imagine the three of us riffing together?
Oh, yes. It's going to be fantastic. Jimmy will also be at the Momentum Builder conference in a couple of weeks as well, out in Vegas.
Awesome. So good. Well, thank you, Scott, so much for your time. Obviously, guys, go follow Scott on Instagram. All of his information is going to be in our show notes too. And most importantly, if you love this episode, I would encourage you to share with a friend, subscribe if you're listening to this on YouTube. And then I would love it if you would email me or DM me on Instagram a guest that you think might be a good option for the show. So really, really grateful for your time, Scott. Thanks for being here.
Yep.
And
Thank
we
you.
see you guys in the next episode.